What's up, MetaNerdz? This breakdown on one of the most iconic speeders will pull from every resource available, so let's get into it. The Single Trooper Aerial Platform, or STAP, was a fast and lightweight repulsor craft built by Droid Armor Workshop, originally for the Trade Federation and then for the separatist Droid Army. It was designed for scouting runs and lightning-fast assaults, and at only 2,500 credits apiece, roughly a quarter the price of the Republic's BARC speeder, it was definitely a budget-friendly option for mass deployment, which was the norm throughout the Trade Federation and later CIS. It stood about 2 meters tall and could reach a top speed of 400 kilometers per hour or 249 miles per hour, though that was still about a quarter slower than the BARC. It was also weaker on offense, carrying only a single repeating dual blaster cannon compared to the BARC's heavier loadout of twin light blaster cannons and 2 anti-personnel lasers. But still, it packed enough power to be respectable and harass infantry or light vehicles while maintaining a level of agility that made it difficult to pin down. In other words, it was fast and powerful enough, and it was almost always piloted by the expendable B1 series battle droids. If you're wondering why this thing isn't a droid itself, why you made a machine to be driven by a droid, well, maybe you should have spoke up during those meetings at the Trade Federation headquarters, because that same critique could be said of everything from the cannons on capital ships to artillery pieces and tanks. They're all manned by B1 series droids. Although I make fun here, it might point to the fact that this is actually cheaper, that the B1's intelligence just hit that perfect middle ground of being smart enough but cheap enough, that using them to man these different things was actually cheaper, or maybe just about the same as putting a dedicated separate droid brain into the tank or into the cannon. Let me know what you think of that in the comments. For the STAP, Trade Federation engineers drew inspiration from civilian airhooks, re-engineering them for military use by boosting speed, durability, and overall reliability. Its slim frame ran on high-voltage energy cells that powered turbine drives, granting it impressive maneuverability. Just like with the Starship, you can give more or less power to either side, giving you very tight turns. And typically, these craft were operated under the guidance of orbital droid control ships, which transmitted signals to coordinate entire squadrons of droids. Even the later B1s, which were not slaved to the control ships, they were often still ordered where to go. But despite the STAP's speed, the exposed droid riders were left highly vulnerable to enemy fire. It's one of the few things that can just be taken down with small arms fire, though of course that is true for all speeders. And really, this is more of an issue when they're ambushed. This shouldn't be used in direct combat. It's more for patrol, reconnaissance, and support duties. Capping off a successful campaign with a little war crime at the end, mopping up anybody trying to run away. It did make its battlefield debut during the Trade Federation's invasion of Naboo. Patrolling the swamps around their landing sites, swarms of the vehicles escorted multi-troop transports as they advanced into Theed, the capital city, where Viceroy Newt Gunray oversaw the operation. Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi encountered them in the wetlands, but Jinn quickly destroyed them by reflecting their blaster fire back, showing just how fragile their frames were. Many squadrons were skimming across the great grass plains, transmitting real-time reconnaissance data back to the droid control ship overhead. And though they were fragile and lightly armed, it really did become a symbol of separatist mobility, and were a bit terrifying as their swarm tactics were effective. They almost delivered a brutal victory on Naboo, sweeping across the great grass plains following the collapse of the Gungan Grand Army. They could have turned all the Gungans into organic, locally sourced fertilizer, but of course the young Anakin Skywalker caused the entire Separatist army to power down in an instant with the destruction of the droid control ship, because these early B1s were still directly controlled by a signal sent from the control ship. They could not operate independently. But of course they would go on to see many more battlefronts across the galaxy during the Clone Wars. Near the end of the Battle of Christophsis, they were seen patrolling the landing zone of General Worm Loathsome's newly reinforced droid army, and Kenobi and Anakin actually turned these machines against their owners, stealing 2 STAPs to make their way back to the Republic lines. They are then seen on Teth, where it really reminds us how repulsor craft work. Many of them can go up hundreds of meters. They really are flying craft, not land vehicles, even if we only usually see them a few feet off the ground. It's funny to think of, but things like Luke's land speeder can fly through the air. And then, during the Battle of Mimban, one was harassing Clone Captain Rex and Representative Jar Jar Binks, but Rex might hold the record for embarrassing these things, taking one out with a single shot from his DC-17 blaster pistol. STAPs returned to Naboo in the year 21 BBY, during the Blue Shadow Virus crisis, and later seen on Lesu patrolling the Energy Bridge. We know of one STAP unit that was led by an Umbaran officer, and at some point in the war, General Grievous had a heavier variant, which was likely a version of the very rare HSTAP for Heavy, which had larger laser cannons and even a missile launcher. Later in the war, they're seen on Utapau, trying to prevent Kenobi and Skywalker from securing a massive Kyber crystal, and they're seen on the front lines in the Third Battle of Megiddo. But even as the war ended, remnants of STAPs survived into the Imperial era. A fractured half of one turned up in a scrap market among other Clone Wars era relics, where it drew the attention of Senior Lieutenant Mithra Narodu, Thrawn, the first weapons officer of the Imperial Gozanti-class cruiser Bloodcrow. When the cruiser's crew investigated the market for signs of smuggling, Thrawn took it upon himself to purchase the artifacts for study, spending 500 of his own credits after securing permission from Captain Rick Virgilio. He stored the salvage STAP and other pieces of technology in a section of the ship's bay, tinkering with them during his off-duty hours. But when there was a change of command on the ship, they threatened to throw out all of his Clone Wars relics. But Thrawn, being the genius he is, was able to get the new leadership to understand the importance of the Mark I Pistoika sabotage droid, or buzz droids, and he was granted 3 months to work with the technology to see if he could get it running and prove its usefulness. But that's the last we ever see of an STAP. Though I like to think there are many being kept alive across the galaxy, as you could see them being very useful for farmers. Fast, easy to maintain, and if you could make sure the blasters were still working, it's a little bit of self-defense and protection from wild animals. As for behind the scenes facts, this is actually my favorite speeder, even above the 74Z, though I admit it's not really a conventional speeder. If you want to learn more, be sure to check out the complete cross-sections books and the complete vehicles. If you made it this far, please hit that like button. I really do need your help. But most important of all, remember, a timeless design doesn't have to cost you a lot of credits. Just be sure to bring your own armor. And the Force will be with you. Always.